challenges are, if and how the initiative can actually help. So can you tell us a little about the RMI market, what it is, how large a part it plays across the UK, and who's involved, who are the people we should be helping?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for the opportunity to speak at your conference today. It's really exciting being in a room such as this and in a virtual environment such as this, so thank you for the opportunity. So the domestic repair, maintenance and home improvement market, often referred to as RMI, represents about half of all UK construction output, which is worth roughly between 45 and 50 billion pounds a year annually, according to the ONS last August. And more than 85% of those RMI businesses are micro businesses or sole traders, usually just 1 to 3 people. So it's very different, I think, when people can think of construction. They might think of big tier ones and big major house builders, but RMI is quite different to that in terms of its makeup and structure. And RMI professionals, these 1 to 3 businesses, maintain the UK's 28 million homes. As people in your audience may or may not know, we have the oldest housing stock in Europe, with almost 40% of our housing stock being built before 1946. And across all tenures, so again, many government interventions, eco funding, different home upgrade grants, things have been very much dedicated towards our social housing sector, and rightly so. But it's important to note, I think, that social housing only makes up 16% of our housing stock. Private rented sector is around 20%. And a massive 65% of our housing stock is in the owner-occupied market. People like, I imagine, many of the people in the audience who are, paying a mortgage and working to try and do that. So that's 65% of the stock. And that stock is very difficult to regulate, very difficult to manage, and very difficult to incentivize. And that's where most of the RMI work happens, in the owner-occupied sector. And it's largely unregulated, and it is certainly data poor, where I think that there's opportunities. That's where I think most of the opportunities lie. And I would just like to finish by sort of saying that every home is unique. Every home is an occupied workplace, and it's not a repeatable project in the same way that new build housing is. If we consider RMI, not all work on homes is the same. And that does make good information management harder, but it also makes it far more valuable. So, despite delivering half the output, the RMI sector remains largely invisible in terms of digital and policy conversations. And I hope that during our conversation today, we can explore how we can maybe address some of those issues.
Yeah, gosh, it sounds massive. It sounds like this isn't an easy market for the trades at all. So can we just explore a bit more what the biggest pain points for them are? Give me a sense of what we should actually focus on. And it sounds so daunting, and I don't think many of us are aware of just how big this market is. And actually how dominant it really is. But as you say, it's remarkable how invisible it is too, and how little attention is given to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say the biggest pain point that the industry have is they're not technical. The pain point isn't technical, that the people doing it are technical. Sorry, the pain isn't technical. And it's not necessarily about, we don't need innovation in terms of products and systems and technical solutions. It is a very person-driven industry. The biggest challenges are systemic and human challenges, and they're around administrative, and they're around information. And that's why I think that your sector, and that this sector has such a huge opportunity and such an important role to play in revolutionizing the sector. And installers tell us regularly, just to give you some examples, they're regularly entering the same data again and again for different schemes, funders or regulators. Of around 150,000 heating engineers, specifically talking about the trade of heating engineers. So these are people who will come and maintain or fit a boiler, maintain central heating systems, etc. There's about 150,000 of them. Only 2% of those hold Trustmark level accreditation. And that's not through lack of skill, but it's because of the administrative burden that scheme brings along with it. And in all honesty, there is enough work for them to do without having that additional administrative burden. So homeowners as well are unregulated clients, and they rarely, if ever, keep reliable records of any work that's done on their property. I would just ask all of the audience members to think about their own properties and think, what actual records do you keep? And is it just receipts stuffed in a lever arch folder on a shelf, if you keep anything at all? And if you're lucky enough to own your own home and to have bought a home, what information did you get given when you bought it? So what has happened over the life of your own property? And we just don't know that. So not only do we not know, there is certainly very little data and proper information that actually then can be used. So that's a real challenge. And so the client side is a challenge. The home side, in terms of knowing what has happened on that house, is a challenge. And also the third stool of the challenge, if you like, the third leg of the stool, is that small firms, remember I said, they're 1 to 3 people. The installer is also the information manager, but they don't have the tools, the training, or the time to manage data well. So I think all of these challenges provide opportunities for the information management community.
Certainly does, but it's massive. It's a pretty well a veritable nightmare. I'm thinking, where on earth do you start? So
yeah.
What is happening at the moment from an information perspective then? So let's see whether there's something we can grasp here.
Well, information exists everywhere, and there is a lot of information, and there is a lot of duplicated information. A lot of information lives in people's heads, in notebooks, on phone photos, but it really connects or endures even through the life cycle of a project, let alone the life cycle of a house, which, as you know, many of them are coming up to 100 years old, if not older. And each job starts from scratch, because there's no shared digital record of anything that's happened on the house. So a tradesperson will come in, they will scope out the job. They've got no idea until they actually start work what they're going to find oftentimes. And none of that data and none of those information points are captured along the process. There's no connected customer journey. There's no connected customer transformation, customer information pathway, and only jobs that are notifiable to building control, which are things like changing drains, having major extensions, changing where a toilet is in a home, having a ensuite fitted, things like that. Only those types of jobs are what are called notifiable. So the bulk of work that's happening in home improvement isn't even, you're not even required to keep any data for it. It's only notifiable jobs that there is actually a legal requirement to keep data. So lots of data is being generated, but at the minute we are not turning that data into shared knowledge that can actually then be used to understand the market, to understand the status, and that could actually then be used to improve future work.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting, isn't it? Because some of the trades, I got 3 daughters and boyfriends who are in the trades, and they'd love an app which would actually facilitate this capture of information and and being able to record what they've done. And and I feel a little ashamed really, because even in my own house, my husband loves his DIY, but does he record it? No, not at all. So I think probably everybody in the room appreciates the problem now. But I think it's where can we start then? Are there steps being taken actually from your perspective, Anna, to try to resolve some of this nightmare scenario, whether it be a MOT on a house, as one of the audience has raised, or some way that actually there's a regulation into actually how you should be capturing changes that you make to your home during the sale process?
Yeah, there are efforts underway to help with this, but I don't think that they're large enough yet. But I do think it's starting the journey, because, as you say, the problem can seem too big to know where to start. And one of the things that we're doing at the National Home Improvement Council with the Construction Leadership Council, supported by Innovate UK, we're running, and these are happening actually at the minute. In fact, I facilitated one just yesterday. We're running installer voice roundtables, and the aim of these is to map the installer's information journey to try and understand where their pain points are. And what we do know from installers is that their pain points are not regulatory, they're not technical, they are 100% administrative. The duplication, the loss of data, and that's where I think that that's where my kind of hope lies. So what we're identifying is that we need to understand where data is created, where it's duplicated, and where data is being lost. And we're then looking to use those insights to design better systems. The work that we're doing, as I said, with Innovate UK, is looking to produce the kind of first RMI information map, because it is quite incredulous that when you think it's half of construction, from a value perspective, we don't understand the process, and that process hasn't been mapped, and we don't understand where data is created, how it needs to be stored, and then what we can do with it. So in time, it would be wonderful to have a digital record for every home, built from the bottom up by the people who are doing the work in those homes. And we're certainly keen to collaborate with you and your colleagues at NIMA and the wider IM community to find ways of making this practical and human-centered. And one thing I will say is that the RMI sector is not old-fashioned. Every tradesperson's, they've probably got better iPhones in their pocket than lots of us. They're very connected. They're already using accountancy software tools. They're already using other types of solutions, technical solutions to help them. But the way that we as an industry are asking them to record data or not, and how they communicate with customers, can still be very much, to coin an old-fashioned phrase, back of a fag packet type solutions. And that's where I think there needs to be some support.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's Nick Nisbet raised, should we be thinking about gradual evolution rather, or continual evolution rather than change management? And I do understand, and it's a little bit with the National Utilities Asset Register as well, is that has been going on for decades. And part of that is that people feel so overwhelmed when it's existing infrastructure and buildings. But where do you start? But as you say, actually just those small steps, just gradually increasing the actual information that's there, and is fantastic hearing that you're already working on a mapping of that information. Let's not bluff out and say, oh, we will solve it tomorrow. It is going to be progressive, isn't it? But I'm really excited hearing, Anna, what you're already doing. and it all sounds really promising. So I guess really, I'm really keen to know, how can we work together then? How can the initiative help? Can we put a spotlight on what you're doing? Can we get more people maybe helping with those round tables? What would you suggest as next steps now?
So at the minute, we are limiting our work to listening to installers. So quite often we assume we know, and we think we know. So we're dedicating the next 12 weeks to very much listening to installers and to their pain points. And that is intended to shape then the direction of potential innovation funding, and to highlight where solutions are needed. One thing the sector doesn't need, it doesn't need more forms to fill in. It doesn't need another layer of data entry. What it does need is a full understanding of the current requirements and how that could be potentially connected better, how the requirements for different schemes could be connected, could be more consistent, and solutions that allow them to collaborate. Because one of the things that's interesting as well, as you start looking at decarbonisation of homes, so the retrofit agenda, as it's often referred to, that's not a one trade solution. That's a multi-trade, multi-intervention, often over years, because if a private homeowner is paying for it, very few want the disruption or have got the ability to fund major overhaul on their home while they're living in it. So it will be a multi-year, multi-intervention solution and multi-trade solution, because insulation needs doing, glazing needs doing, roofing needs doing, so carpentry skills, solar PV, battery, so there's a lot of things that need to happen. And at the minute, there are roles such as retrofit coordinators, but they tend to happen mainly in social housing where it's all being done at once. At the minute, that role is that kind of job, if you like, that oversight is the responsibility of the homeowner. And the homeowner is largely, and I include myself in this, is largely unknowledgeable about what needs to happen and doesn't have the, I'm not a building physicist. We don't understand how moisture and air move through our walls. It needs that kind of proper technical support. But there's a lot of ways that technology and information management, I think, can support that process. And if we think of those three stools, there's the consumer that needs some support. The tradesperson needs support in terms of that information management. And then the house itself, I think it provides a bit of a repository opportunity to have that data collection and how then that connects, and that interoperability of the different trades, the different solutions over time, and that knowledge capture.
No, that sounds that sounds eminently sensible to me. And what's making me think here is actually joining the dots. So we've also got parallel conversations around product data. So you're familiar with the digital product passports conversations going on. There's the move, and David Hancock mentioned it, the strategic planning, but also within MHCLG, one of the government departments, moving forward with planning and actually linking different local authorities. So I realise this is right down at the beginning of a life cycle, but they're also wondering about how they can then get consistency with building control. So Kevin Reeves is in the audience, raising the issue around, actually, could we have digital twins of homes, because there are geeks. Sorry, Kevin, calling you a geek as well. But, actually, there is a desire as homeowners get younger as well, actually, to be able to contribute to this and be really keen about MOT for a house and having a passport for a house going through sales. So I think there's some great opportunity to join some dots here, because I do think that there's parallel conversations which really need to be joined up. And I can see that Patricia Macy is here as well, saying, yeah, joining the dots from silos to systems. Let's building a giant digital product passport, I think is what Trish has just put in. So, yeah, it's fascinating, Anna. There's a lot to unpick here. I'm really keen for us to work together on next steps. It sounds like people in the audience are really supportive of this. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. If you are able to go down to the IMI networking room, Anna, I suspect there'd be people keen to ask further questions of you. So I think on that basis, is there anything you'd like to add before we close this fascinating fireside chat?
No, I think my sort of final point would be that it's if we can make information management work for even the smallest business in the most ordinary of homes, then I think it will work for everybody, and it will provide government with the data they need, so that they can then work out what actually needs to happen to homes to decarbonise them and make them safe and healthy and vibrant for people to live in. And that's something we need. The regulators will know what is being done and what isn't, and the homeowner then has some knowledge and confidence that they know what to specify to happen on their home, so that their money isn't being wasted. And the funders, the banks that are lending the mortgages or lending for home improvement jobs, have got that sort of confirmation of data, and they can manage their risk. So everybody needs information, and we need to understand the best way to collect that in a non-intrusive way, and a way that then becomes universal, that can then be accessed without overburdening already overburdened tradespeople who are there as professional tradespeople. They are there as carpenters, electricians, gas engineers. They are not there as information management data capturers. So it's about understanding how do we support them, and how then can that data be used. And I think if we can make it work in the most ordinary of basic situations, then it will work on more complex jobs as well.
And a fantastic way to finish our fireside chat. Thank you so much. And thank you, those in the audience with the comments. Really good to see so much interest and enthusiasm. And finally, thank you ever so much. And let's move down to the IMI networking room.